Hello, friends around the world. This is Will Barney from Enoch Global Services here with another global update on Thursday, April 9th, 2026. We've got a lot of interesting things to talk about that have been taking place over the last 2 weeks since we last did an update with the Easter holiday here and so many things transpiring, especially Iran. We can see that today's episode is titled appropriately, A Ceasefire Begins. So we're going to be discussing a little bit about what's been taking place in Iran, along with many other things that are going on that are all about the financial changes and the reset that's occurring in many areas, not just financial, but as part of regulatory, as part of the educational, the healthcare, everything that you can think of is under a transition right now. And so we're going to touch on some of these things today and give you some insight of how we see them and what may be taking place over the next short period of time. So with that, we'll get started with the first slides. We're going to start with financial news, and we'll go to the usdebtclock.org to look at some of the images that they've dropped. Here's the first one over the last 10 days. I want you to end the Fed. Notice that's a picture of Uncle Sam there, and he's pointing a finger at you. That means he wants all of us to participate in this process of ending that. Next, no more income tax, replaced by the USA Treasury asset-backed dividend dollar, 100% reserve. This is amazing because the Federal Reserve is not a reserve, and nor is it federal. Both of those things have been wrong for many years. But we have a great opportunity with the coming reset to end income tax and to have our country still be funded and taken care of through many other sources of revenue. Another image that they posted, rise to a new reality. And of course, they've got this beautiful background picture there of the clouds and a walkway there as if you're headed to new opportunities, right? New understanding, a way of doing things. And lastly, from them, we have this one, which is interest for good or evil. On the left-hand side, we have the new 50-state credit union banks, interest rates of 0 to 3%, only 4% of GDP. And we have, of course, there it says income and property tax 0%. How different that is from direct ownership by we the people versus what we've been living through, which is the Federal Reserve System, where interest rates are 6 to 24%. Up to 20% of GDP is going towards this interest rate. Income tax, 20, or they're showing a minimum of 10, up to as high as 37%. An income tax, eternal bondage, and of course, the bottom it says the oligarchs. So we've been living under this. We know what it is. We know how it functions, and it is not good for any of us. So happy to see that the debt clock is giving you guys an idea of what's coming. I hope you're excited because we're just months away from some major, major transitions. Moving on, financial news, we have this from the FDIC. They approved a proposal to implement the Genius Act requirements and standards. Now, the FDIC is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This is the company that insures depositors' money in banks today, up to $250,000. Let's take a look at what they said. It's highlighted in the red box there. It says the proposed rule would also establish requirements for FDIC-supervised permitted payment stablecoin issuers and insured depository institutions that provide certain payment stablecoin-related custodial and safekeeping services. In addition, the proposed rule would address the applicability of pass-through insurance to deposits held as reserves backing payment stablecoins and would clarify that tokenized deposits that satisfy the statutory definition of, quote, a deposit would be treated no differently under the Federal Deposit Insurance Act than any other types of deposits. Okay, let's break this down into plain English for you. What this means is that deposits made via tokens on blockchain with regulated institutions count the same and are insured the same as your deposits in the banks. This is fantastic news. It means that we have insurance coming to the blockchain system for deposits This is a big deal. I hope you see it as a big deal, and it's part of the many changes taking place. As you can see, they posted this on their website on April 7th, 2026. So just 2 days ago. Really awesome. Donald Trump posted this video to his True Social account. It's New York City, 1929. Let's take a look at the video, and then I'll and they're acting as everything is normal, everything's perfectly fine. Now, what happened in 1929? In 1929, we had the Great Crash, the big financial crash, the stock market crash, and it sent the country into a Great Depression. So as you can see, these people are walking around like everything's fine, everything's going to be normal. But at the end, look at this image here, right at the end of the video, they're all standing in a line to get bread and soup. Okay. Why is the president dropping this message to us now? Could there be financial changes coming that could be similar to 1929 of a major crash of events as the old system is coming down and the new one is being propped up? I think what he's telling you is to be ready, to be prepared, because there could be major shifts in the financial system, and we could have what some would call crashes that take place that could be very detrimental to many of you. So be careful. Be careful where your investments are. Be careful where your money is. If it's held in banks, make sure it's in banks that can survive a coming tsunami. And each one of you will have to take a look at your situations to see how you fit in that. But it is not a coincidence that the president drops this type of video and message for us. Next, Rob Cunningham posted this. President 47, ending 47 years of tyranny on 4-7, that's April 7th, 2026, on the 7th night of Passover, parting the city of London's Red Sea of debt to free the captives. What a time to be alive. God is good. He's got a heart there. Truth is. So what's Rob getting at here? What he's getting at here is this is talking about the agreement that was reached with Iran on Tuesday, the 7th of April. This agreement ended what's been going on for 47 years in Iran. And it just so happened that it's the 47th president that ends it on the 7th night of Passover. There are no coincidences. You are watching all this play out. Now, why is this important? Why is it important that this goes on with Iran? Well, I want to get into the Iran subject here just a little bit, and I want to kind of dissect it and unpack it just a little bit. But I'm going to put this on pause for a second because we're going to come back to this in just a minute. In other news of financial proportions, we have this coming out of Japan. And take a listen. This is actually good news for blockchain and Ripple.
SBI Ripple Asia just made a major announcement from Tokyo. They've completed development of a token issuance platform built on the XRP ledger, and they've registered as a licensed prepaid payment instrument issuer under Japan's Payment Services Act. What does that mean? Businesses in Japan can now issue regulated digital tokens on XRPL, connected via API to existing apps and websites. Users hold and use digital assets without even knowing they're on a blockchain. This is real-world adoption. Licensed, regulated, live. Built on the XRP ledger.
So very interesting. So what's going on here is Japan. They are adopting XRP Ledger for the implementation of tokenized services. This reduces the cost. It makes everything super fast. And much of this is being done within the banks themselves. And if you have a bank account, this may be taking place. You don't even know it's taking place. Like she said, existing networks, and that includes banks, are going to be operating on these specific blockchain channels, speed, efficiency, cost savings. And you may not even know what's going on, but it is. And we're going to see more of this as we go forward with the implementation of advanced technology. Let's listen to what Brad Gardinghouse had to say about Swift and Ripple's position in that.
Is there a possibility that Ripple could take over Swift one day?
Well, I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is, in fact, taking over Swift. In that, we've now signed up, well over 100 banks. Some of the largest Swift-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week, we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. That's the type of dynamic that Swift isn't able to support that we're able to address right now, and that's something we saw just in the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order and take advantage of these technologies. To the extent we can work with Swift to do that, then that's great.
We want to see banks succeed in this new world order. Not to be confused with what the cabal has been telling you is the new world order. What we're talking about is a new way of transacting. He said over 100 banks. It's actually much higher number than that now today. This isn't a current video. It was done some time ago, but I wanted to highlight the aspects of this. What's fascinating is many of the top level banks are already moving funds via XRP within their bank. This is from a bit large bank. Bank of America is a good example. Bank of America has accounts in many different countries, as well as here in the United States. And money needs to move between all those different accounts. Guess what? They use XRP. Why? Because they can move it just like that, and it costs them next to nothing to do it. Rather than using the traditional bank system to move their funds around, they're using XRP within the bank system itself. So the bank doesn't want to sit around and wait for 2 days for something to clear either, because they need it repositioned right now. And you're going to see more of this as institutions begin adopting the technology. Let's get into Iran and talk about some of the things that happened. So over the last week, there's been several significant events. As a brief overview, I want to give you just a little snippet here from Just the News. This is John Solomon of Just the News, and he gives us a little bit of some things that occurred over the last few days that have led to what we know as the ceasefire. So take a listen.
In the last week, U.S. officials have picked up a subtle change, sort of a schism growing inside Iran. There is the civilian leadership, what's left of it, that is taking stock of the mass damage that the U.S. and Israel militaries have been able to inflict on Iran. Its Navy gone, its Air Force gone, most of its defense manufacturing facilities eradicated, its missiles and its drone batteries declining quickly. The country knows it is on the losing end of the war, at least on the civilian side. But the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, the most feared military component in the country, has been holding out, wanting to fight to death and not to give in. Over the weekend, the IRGC ended up with a little egg on its face. It never was able to capture that American pilot shot out of the sky, even though he's on the ground in enemy territory for 2 full days. The IRGC, well, it fell for some head fakes that the CIA and the military planned for them. It lost a little street cred on the ground in Iran with the Iranian people who often fear it. And then on Monday, President Trump ordered a decapitation strike, which took out 50 to 70 of the IRGC's top leadership, including either people who were killed or severely wounded and incapacitated.
So decapitation strike occurred on April 6th that took out much of their leadership. And then we wonder why we had an agreement on the 7th. There are no happenstance to any of this. Let's take a look at what Donald Trump posted about this operation and the pilots. There was an F-15 fighter jet that was shot down over Iran. These planes require 2 pilots to pilot them. So you have, and they kind of sit tandem, one in front of the other. So both pilots ejected and they landed safely, but then they were being hunted by the IRGC within enemy territory. And both were rescued. But let's take a look at what Trump had to say. We got him, my fellow Americans. Over the past several hours, the United States military pulled off one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history for one of our incredible crew member officers, who also happens to be a highly respected colonel and who I am thrilled to let you know is now safe and sound. This brave warrior was behind enemy lines in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by our enemies, who were getting closer and closer by the hour, but was never truly alone because his commander-in-chief, Secretary of War, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and fellow warfighters were monitoring his location 24 hours a day and diligently planning for his rescue. At my direction, the U.S. military sent dozens of aircraft armed with the most lethal weapons in the world to retrieve him. He sustained injuries, but he will be just fine. The miraculous search and rescue operations comes in addition to successful rescue of another pilot yesterday, which we did not confirm because we did not want to jeopardize the second rescue operation. This is the first time in military memory that 2 U.S. pilots have been rescued separately deep in enemy territory. We will never leave an American warfighter behind. The fact that we were able to pull off both of these operations without a single American killed or even wounded just proves once again that we have achieved overwhelming air dominance and superiority over the Iranian skies. This is a moment for all Americans, Republican, Democrat, and everyone else, should be proud of and united around. We truly have the best, most professional, and lethal military in the history of the world. God bless America. God bless our troops, and happy Easter to all. And of course, he put this out on April 4th. As the Easter sun was rising over Iran, they were flying him out of there. Incredible, amazing. And one of the operations that, as John Solomon said, pat a little egg on the face for the IRGC. And they lost some credibility even within their own Iranian people, which has led to a ceasefire. President Trump posted this: based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Azim Munar of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives, and we are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of the past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as President, and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to a resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. BRICS News posted this on X.com. Just in, the U.S. and Iran are going to hold peace talks Saturday morning in Islamabad, Pakistan. The U.S. delegation will be J.D. Vance, Kushner, and Witkoff that will be there, as well as Iranian delegation will be Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Araghchi. Okay, I'm not Arabic, so I'm saying these names incorrectly, and I apologize. But they're going to have a meeting on Saturday, very soon, to get this handled. So hopefully the 11th is very productive. President Trump had some comments to say about how our allies have handled the situation with Iran and that they were refusing to give some help. Take a listen.
And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan. We've got 50,000 soldiers in Japan to protect them from North Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea to protect us from Kim Jong-un, who I get along with very well, as you know. Do you notice he said very nice things about me? He used to call Joe Biden a mentally retarded person, okay? So
Trump's not too happy about the allies not offering to help, which has led to some other conversations, specifically about Europe and NATO. Secretary Marco Rubio had some things to say about the NATO relationship, and I want to feature this.
When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict is over.
So there's a lot of discussion about whether the United States should even be in NATO and supporting NATO. However, NATO does not survive without the United States because of money, number one, and number two, because of military might. None of the countries within the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, none of them have enough military to actually defend themselves, which is why they all partnered together to try to help. But this is a very interesting turn of events. If the U.S. decides that they want to withdraw, that leaves Europe in a very interesting scenario. Donald Trump had this to say about NATO. Let's take a listen.
Middle East will be gone, and then they're coming for Europe. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in NATO, very. I think that NATO, I think it's a mark on NATO that will never disappear in my mind. You know, they're coming to see me on Wednesday. They're going to say, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. Now they all of a sudden want to send things, you know. But they said it loud and clear at the beginning when I spoke to UK of all. I would have said they would have been the first because they're the oldest. And I say, yeah, I'd love to have a little help. He said, no, sir, we'd rather wait till you win. I said, I don't need help after we win. They have 2 old broken aircraft carriers, barely work. I said, I guess we can use them. Who the hell knows? I called the general. He didn't even want them. He said, we don't really need them. We got the SS Abraham Lincoln, sir. We don't need them. You know, we have, in terms of technology, we had one day 101 missiles going at 2,700 miles an hour aimed at the Abraham Lincoln. 101 missiles. Out of 101 missiles, 101 missiles were shot down.
Credible success was shooting down all the missiles heading directly for the aircraft carrier, but Trump is not happy about NATO and what they're doing. So he says we will not forget what they did, more closely what they didn't do. This is going to be interesting as we watch this relationship pour out. Now, all of this is somewhat connected together, and I want to talk about this in just a minute. But there was another press conference here where Trump is answering some questions from the press about Iran and the situation there. And one of the press asked a very interesting question about Iran charging money for ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Il Donato Trump couldn't help himself. Of course, he had to take this opportunity to take the video with the use of AI, did some touch up to it. But listen to what Trump said. Regardless, it is kind of funny the way that the way he touched him up to look like the boss of all bosses. Take a listen.
Are you willing to end this conflict with Iran charging tolls for passage through the strait?
Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that than let them have them, right? Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won, okay? They are militarily defeated. The only thing they have is the psychology of, oh, we're going to drop a couple of mines in the water, all right? No, we have a concept where we'll charge tolls, okay? I thought you meant us.
So Trump wants to charge tolls rather than Iran charge them, right? We're the winner. We should charge the tolls. Very interesting. He also made comments to other nations. The oil is in the strait. Go get it. He said, just go get it. Many of the countries did not respond, however. And he also offered to sell them the oil from the United States, whatever they need. The allied countries that are looking for oil reserves, there's no reason they couldn't do long-term contracts with the United States, who is the largest producer of oil in the world presently. Moving on, Donald Trump had this to say: a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There will be no exclusions or exemptions. President Donald J. Trump posted this yesterday. Now, why is this important? Why are we having all this issue with Iran? What does this have to do with anything that we've been discussing for months about the reset? All of this is tied together. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it is. The entire world is enslaved by a financial system who is governed by a small group of people. We call them the cabal. Just a nickname. You could call them anything you want. But we call them the cabal, who has organized a system to enslave the world. Now, they have used various what we call rogue states to carry out their mischief around the world to try to keep everything the way they want it. You know, keep everybody in conflict, keep us fighting with each other so we don't just prosper, right? And have a way out of the situation they placed us in. So why is this important? It's important because we don't get to a point of financial transition where we can change financial systems if we don't first eliminate the threat that they will drop missiles on our heads the moment we try to change that financial system, because they will do anything to defend the system they've had for the last 100 plus years. Anything. And they don't care about the loss of life. So, but why Iran? The reason Iran is if you were to look at financial records, you would find a direct connection between the city of London and the support for Iran. Why? Because the military that's going on in Iran, the IRGC, they do not have any allegiance to the people of Iran. They do not have any allegiance to the country of Iran. They don't have any allegiance to their neighbors in the Middle East. They have allegiance to who pays them, and that's the cabal. So it wasn't enough to simply go in and remove the leadership. There had to be an elimination of the weaponry that they could use to drop on our heads when we decide to leave the plantation and move to a new financial system and get rid of this hegemony that they've held over our heads for all this time. All of this is connected. Now, this is interesting because as you've seen the conflict play out, we've begun to see the reaction of various leaders around the world and what they're doing with this. They know what's happening. Even if they don't telegraph it to you, they know. And so when you have leaders saying, we're not going to support the U.S. in this, it's the same as saying we support Iran. We don't support the people in our own nation. We want to keep them under ball and chain, lock and key, forever. So you have many leaders, and primarily you're seeing a concentration in Europe, who are the puppets of the cabal. And so they're doing their bidding. And this is why Trump said, we will never forget what you did. Once Iran is cleaned up, what do you think comes next? For 10 plus years, the White Hats have been doing subterranean tunnel warfare. What does this mean? This got launched during Trump's first presidency. It means for 10 years, we've been clearing out the deep underground bases and the tunnel system underneath. This was their refuge. It was their place to hide. If everything else didn't work, they could blow up the world with nukes and hide there. So we had to eliminate that first. That has been eliminated. Their place of refuge has been taken away. Now we have to clean up the surface. We have to clean up Venezuela. We have to clean up cartels in Mexico. We got to clean up issues in Cuba and Iran, as we've been seeing for the last 40 days. And there's other issues. And our eyes are going to be on Europe, because there's certain leaders there that have stolen elections to be placed into positions of power. The Venezuelan vote stealing technology was exported all over the world. Over 70 nations of the 210 nations of the world had their governments stolen from them. The elections were not the voice of the people whatsoever. They were something else entirely, where people were placed in positions and installed. And you're going to see this playing out, particularly over the next 90 days to 120 days. You're going to see a lot of information coming out, pouring out about the stolen elections, about how the governments were taken from the people. We have to reset everything. Money, politics, health, everything, all of it, education. They infiltrated every part of life, and they've carried out this incredible period of corruption where they pay everybody off. We're about to launch into some of the major fraud moves, and I'm going to get to that here in just a little bit, where we're going to start cleaning up all the fraud that's been going on in America. It is billions and billions and billions of waste and fraud using taxpayer dollars to carry out all of this. So all this is connected. It's all a part of the reset. And we're going to be watching as this continues to play out. Keep your eyes on Israel. Israel's been helping with this incursion with Iran. But we recently had the end of a militarized conflict with Gaza. That ended. We're getting peace, right? We got a board of peace established. We got peace coming to the Middle East. We now have Iran that is under a ceasefire agreement. We'll see if we can get to permanent agreements. That's going to be worked on Saturday. So what happens with Israel when their enemies are no longer enemies? Are they going to play nice? Are they going to be aggressive? Q said that Israel would be last for reasons not specified. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open with everything. The cabal doesn't want to just leave. They're not holding their hands up saying, oh, sorry, you got us. Okay, you can have it. We're done. That's not what they're doing. They will fight to the death. And if they can't have the control, they'll burn the world to the ground so no one can have it. That's their thought process. That's the enemy that we encounter. This is why we are in militarized operations right now, because we are removing that threat. We are removing their ability to burn the world down so that we have something to inherit and that we can launch into a new time of prosperity and peace. Watch more about the Board of Peace, because that's going to grow in popularity as we go forward, as these conflicts come to an end. I expect countries like Cuba to be in the news very quickly over the next several weeks. You're going to see some things taking place there as well. So a lot going on, folks. There's a lot going on. Let's move on with our slides. FBI Director Kash Patel posted this. FBI and our partners have arrested a former SOCOM employee who supported our top-level military warfighters for allegedly transmitting classified information to a member of the media. The outstanding work by the FBI in Charlotte and the FBI Counterintelligence Espionage Division, as well as our Justice Department partners. Let this serve as a message to any would-be leakers. We're working these cases. We're making arrests. This FBI will not tolerate those who leak, who seek to betray our country and put Americans in harm's way. So who was this person? President Trump said somebody leaked the story about the pilot, the first pilot that was rescued before they were going to release the information. They were trying to keep it quiet for the safety of the second pilot they were rescuing. Somebody leaked it out. Who was it? Let's move to the next slide. Eric Daugherty posted this. Holy crap, the FBI has arrested former U.S. Special Operations and Delta Force veteran Courtney Williams for violating the Espionage Act. DOJ says she transmitted classified national defense intel to the media and put our warfighters at risk. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Security clearance while she worked with Delta Force there with the Army in Fort Bragg. She's the whistleblower that called out the maltreatment that she was experiencing while working there. But the feds believe she was giving away a lot more than just workplace secrets that could have put soldiers' lives at risk.
For 8 years, Courtney Williams worked in the Army's Delta Force at Fort Bragg, behind-the-scenes work to help maintain cover for one of the military's most secretive groups. But now she's being accused of leaking top-secret information to a journalist that could have put soldiers' lives at risk. Williams was quoted in Seth Harp's book, The Fort Bragg Cartel.
My book is critical of these institutions because I think that waging war in secrecy for 20 years gives rise to a host of cultural problems that spill over into communities like Fayetteville.
WRAL interviewed Harp about the book in October. Williams was quoted extensively when referring to a toxic work environment within Delta Force, where she claimed she was sexually harassed and discriminated against while also sharing information about work she would do. A criminal complaint filed today indicates she had concerns about how Harp's reporting could affect her, telling her mother, "I might actually get arrested," and also telling Harp, "I would definitely have been concerned with the amount of classified information being disclosed." She continued, saying in part, "I'm taking deep breaths, but have a feeling this is going to be more of a nightmare for my children than not." Harp declined an interview but sent me a statement calling this a vindictive act of retaliation and saying in part, "Former Delta Force operators disclose national defense information on podcasts and YouTube shows every day, but the government is going after Courtney for the sole reason that she exposed sexual harassment and gender discrimination in the unit."
So the Eastern District of North Carolina says they will be releasing some sort of press release sometime soon, but don't have a public comment to give me at this point. I have also reached out.
So this is part of the justice that's coming. I mentioned justice was coming for various acts. This is going to lead eventually to the tribunals for treason and other things that are going to be handled very seriously. And so we have a lot more coming regarding this, but this is the beginning of what is going to be a string of justice carried out. Some other updates regarding the U.S. government. This is the United States Trade Representative. They posted this. President Trump's policies are accelerating mining, processing, refining critical minerals. Let's listen to what Mr. Gray has to say.
We are making large strides in the United States with respect to domestic self-sufficiency for rare earths. We're working with partners on this, talking about stockpiling, doing deals, not just mining facilities, but processing, refining, manufacturing, and talking about pricing mechanisms to make sure it can be economically sustainable.
In February, they held a minerals ministerial with 54 nations to put price floors on various minerals. This would create an economic environment where it would be viable for mining companies to get back in the game of getting these minerals out of ground, but also for refining companies that do the refining process to get back in the game. It does take some time to build these facilities, and they're looking at shoring that up. But great strides have been made in the last 12 months in trying to secure, for national defense reasons, the resources of America. This is also going on in many other nations. As I said, 54 nations attended this ministerial where they discussed the protection of minerals within all the countries and how they could come up with price floors that would prevent economically and make it viable for anybody to come in and undercut these countries. They can make it viable for the miners within their own countries to mine it. So I think this is a big move, and it just shows that the government's on top of this. They're moving forward to make America more safe for national security reasons. Wall Street Journal had this to say: drivers celebrate the demise of the most hated feature in their cars. This is about the start-stop feature located on cars. Lee Zeldin, who is the EPA administrator, said this: as part of the biggest deregulatory action in U.S. history, the Trump EPA eliminated all off-cycle credits that incentivized the installation of almost universally despised start-stop feature in vehicles. There will be no more climate participation trophies for manufacturers for making our vehicles die at every red light and stop sign. This is very interesting. Those that understand engines and that are in cars and how they work know that the most vulnerable time in an engine's life is when it's first started. That's because all the oil is sitting in the bottom of the oil pan and it's not circulated in the engine. You create a start-stop situation over and over and over. This is not good for the life of the engine, all just to claim that you're saving something. But are you saving something? That is the question. When engines cost thousands and thousands of dollars, is there a savings? We need to take a hard look at that. And I'm glad to see the EPA has ended this. It's no longer a thing. I do expect that manufacturers will start putting permanent defeats. If they have the feature in a car, they'll probably allow the driver to permanently turn it off and not have to keep pushing a button every time they get in the car. Lee Zeldin also went on to save some money for taxpayers with this. The Biden administration spent $4 million in tax dollars on a museum to tell the selective story of the EPA history. It costs $600,000 per year to operate, even though only 1,909 external visitors came through in the last 9 months. Today, we are closing it. Listen to what he says.
If you were to visit the museum located here at EPA headquarters in D.C., you would learn a lot about the road to environmental justice and climate change. This museum claims EPA pursues its mission by advancing environmental justice, equity, and civil rights compliance. A timeline of key events conveniently omits any mention of President Trump's first administration. I'm currently standing inside of this museum, which was built and curated by the Biden administration with $4 million in taxpayer dollars. As if this wasn't enough of a price tag to fill a room the size of an apartment, this shrine to environmental justice and climate change cost the American taxpayer $600,000 to operate annually. This agency has been spending $123,000 on cleaning, $207,000 for security, $54,000 on maintenance, and an additional $54,000 on storage. From May 2024 through last month, only 1,909 members of the public visited the museum. Even though it is free admission, this museum costs you, the taxpayer, $315 per external visitor. I have pledged to be an exceptional steward of taxpayer dollars, so this shrine to EJ and climate change will now be shut down for good. I will do my part to help the American people learn more about the amazing work of our agency to provide cleaner, healthier, and safer land, air, and water. We will do so without paying over $500,000 in tax dollars on a museum that is barely visited and designed to tell an ideologically slanted, partial story of the EPA. Under President Trump, we are ending the practice of burning tax dollars on pet projects that do nothing to help this agency achieve our mission of protecting human health and the environment.
Thank you, Lee Zeldin, for the work you're doing, saving ourselves money, as well as getting rid of the nonsense that's been going on. In other news, Rapid Response posted this about Secretary Mullins of the DHS. He's the new Department of Homeland Security Secretary. And he had some things to say about sanctuary cities. And I thought this was very interesting. What could we see in the sanctuary cities? Take a look.
I believe sanctuary cities is not lawful. I don't think they're able to do that. And so we're going to take a hard look at this. Just one area we may take a hard look at is some of these cities have international airports. If they're a sanctuary city, should they really be processing customs into their city? I mean, seriously, if they're a sanctuary city and they're receiving international flights, and we're asking them to partner with us at the airport, but once they walk out of the airport, they're not going to enforce immigration policy, maybe we need to have a really hard look at that, because we need to focus on cities that want to work with us.
So you're saying that big cities that are sanctuary cities that have a big airport, they might lose their customs?
Well, I'm saying we're going to have to start prioritizing things at some point. Right now, remember, the Democrats are wanting to defund Customs and Border Patrol. Well, who processes those individuals when they walk off the plane? And so I'm going to have to be forced to make hard decisions. Who's willing to work with us and partner with us? Once again, I'm not going outside the policies that Congress passed for me, and we're not trying to push those, but we're saying you got to partner with them.
So, interesting thing that's going on there, and I do agree that they need to take a look. Sanctuary City is a city that's saying, we don't care about the laws of the country. We're going to let illegals in anyway. So I'm glad that that's being addressed here. More information coming from Secretary Kennedy, the Health and Human Services Secretary. Listen to what he has to say.
Breaking news. A safety and quality special alert was just issued by CMS under the guidance of Secretary Kennedy. We are asking all hospitals in the country to use the dietary guidelines that were put in place in January by Health and Human Services, the United States Department of Agriculture, to get those foods onto the tables where patients can eat them in their rooms. We know this is an effective program. It's already been started in other parts of Florida. It's wonderful to be able to extend it today to Miami.
Yeah, and this is something that the hospitals actually like. We've spoken to them. It gives them the ability to change the food in their systems. A high quality, healthy food that's going to keep patients healthy. Hospital food is notoriously appalling. And the question is, why are we giving bad food to patients who are trying to recover? These kind of foods destroy the metabolic system, they interfere with the microbiome, they cause inflammation, and we know that they prolong recovery and they increase the rate of readmissions to the hospital. They're not making patients well. I'm very, very grateful to the Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson, and also to Matthew Love, who's the CEO of Nicholas Children's Hospital here in Miami, who is leading the nation on converting this hospital to not only good food and real food, but also locally based food.
Well, thank you. And we are here at Nicholas Children's. We're proud to be the first hospital to sign this pledge to bring healthy foods back into hospitals. Healthy food to healthy kids. In Florida, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and really push this through our healthcare system, which we have gotten great response from.
And we all need to start recognizing that food is a medical tool. When we give people good food, they get better faster. Good, nutrient-dense food that is going to help make patients healthier and help make America healthy again.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health.
So good news, bringing real healthy food to hospitals. That's about time. Good to see that that's taking place. This is a children's hospital featured here, but good stuff going on there. Moving on to the Department of Justice, we have an acting Attorney General. The previous one has stepped down, Pam Bondi, and so our new Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is launching a new National Fraud Enforcement Division. Let's listen to what he has to say about this. This is big news.
And so today I'm proud to announce in greater detail the creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Its core mission will be to zealously investigate and prosecute those who steal taxpayer dollars and rip off the American people. Our vision is to build a robust fraud-fighting squad capable of investigating and prosecuting the full spectrum of fraud against taxpayer dollars. We are going to staff this division by some of the department's best prosecutors, bringing together experts in healthcare fraud, tax fraud, benefits fraud, and corporate fraud under one roof with one mission: to protect the American people from fraud. Every U.S. Attorney's Office across the country will also be joining this re-energized fight against fraud. This means, in pure numbers, that there will be an additional 93 prosecutors in every district across the country devoted to the mission of combating fraud with the National Fraud Enforcement Division. To the attorneys and staff who join this new division, you will have the entire department's support as you work to protect the financial integrity of our entire government and the tax system that supports it. We will spare no resources in giving you the tools that you need to bring strong cases and do justice.
So we're now launching a major effort. A month ago, President Trump, in his State of the Union speech, said that Vice President J.D. Vance would become the head of the fraud. Many have jokingly called him the fraud czar, and he accepts that willingly. And now we have the Department of Justice backing him up now. 93 additional prosecutors in every district. That's not 93 total. That's in every district. So they're putting this, really taking this seriously. There's over 8,000 matters being currently investigated for fraud right now in the United States. He went on to take some questions from the press, and as he did this, one asked him about the weaponization of government, saying this looks like the weaponization of government. Listen to what he had to say in response to that.
That is supposedly that when we talk about ending weaponization, as if that's a bad thing for us to do. Okay, people in this room for 4 years, some of you, same people, sat here with the last administration when you saw a weaponization of this department, the likes of which had never been seen in history. And some of you are looking down now. And I get it, because you had a president who was indicted 4 times by this department. You had a president who along with this department had assistance. So this department helped 2 other local DAs go after the president. You had this department who stood idly by while states tried to keep President Trump off the ballot. Okay, that's what happened the past 4 years. And so when I'm asked questions or when I see reporting about shock and awe at this supposed weaponization of this Department of Justice, it means nothing to me, because it's completely false. What we're doing and what we've been doing for the past 14 months is changing this department. We're no longer, people say the president wants to go after his political enemies. No, the president has said time and time again that he wants justice. And if you look at what happened to him, his family, his administration, the agents that protected him, people that happened to just walk by him on a given day, they got subjected to massive investigations by this department. So I understand the question, and I understand the pretty constant role of the media that somehow this department is weaponizing itself, but it happens not to be true. We have tens of thousands of prosecutors all over this country putting bad guys in jail. Okay, that's something that wasn't happening like it should have been happening for the past 4 years. That's going to happen tomorrow, and it's going to happen in the coming days.
The weaponization is ending, and the justice is beginning. Great news. Secretary Sean Duffy, head of the transportation in America, this also covers all the airspace and NASA and everything else under his administration, had some things to say. He says, we are working at the speed of Trump to build out our new air traffic control system. Listen to what he says about this new system.
How do I have great air traffic controllers and I back them up with great technology? I got $12.5 billion that I'm working on right now. The next 2.5 years, we're going to spend that building out. We're going to have new telecom, we're going to have new radar, new voice switches. But the next part is we need new software to manage the system. Congress has to give me money for that.
So now he's asking for more money so they can put the software system in place. This is interesting what they're building because they're putting the same system in every airport across the nation from coast to coast. New radars, new communication, new software. What does this mean? It means that they can manage the airspace. They can track a bird from coast to coast with this system. What you're seeing here is the implementation of the Golden Dome. It's incredible what's taking place. And this is going to open up a lot of room for future advancement, flying cars, delivery drones, and other things that are coming. Everybody's familiar with the camera drones that fly around and just take pictures. Well, we're going to soon have delivery drones that drop the Amazon package or Walmart package at your doorstep. How do you manage these additional resources in the airspace if you don't have an updated air traffic control system that can track all of that and manage it? So they can say, you know what? Here's the first 500 feet above the surface. This is for delivery drones. Here's 1,000 feet to 5,000 feet. Here's the flying cars. They can manage all that with this new system. It's going to be phenomenal when it's done. Yes, it is taking a few years to install it, but it's going to be incredible when we get to that point. So I'm quite excited for the future and what it brings. One American News did a report on Trump's suggestion that Alcatraz be reopened as a place to put criminals again. For the past many years, it's actually been a tourist destination with people visiting to see this iconic jail. Let's listen to the story. I thought it was very fascinating.
Alcatraz in San Francisco could swap tourists for inmates under President Trump's bold new plan to reopen a prison that once housed some of the most infamous prisoners. Here's my report.
It represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate.
President Donald Trump is looking to turn back time all the way to the Rock. His 2027 budget proposal, announced Friday, includes $152 million to reopen Alcatraz as a high-security federal prison, a place once home to some of the nation's most notorious criminals. From Al Capone to George Machine Gun Kelly, the infamous island locked away America's most dangerous and most legendary inmates. The plan calls for a state-of-the-art facility, with some estimates suggesting the final price tag could top $2 billion. Jumping on board with the idea is border czar Tom Homan, who says it could be used to house detained migrants.
It's on the table. It should be on the table because we need detention beds. And I think that's an appropriate place for the significant public safety threats, national security threats. Why not?
The prison closed back in 1963, in part because it was nearly 3 times more expensive to operate than any other federal facilities. Today, it's a major tourist attraction, drawing more than 1 million visitors a year. Some local leaders and critics question whether the island should be anything other than a historic landmark.
I worked out there 40 years ago as a ranger, and it was falling apart then. The building is not, it would cost so much money to make that inhabitable, for even the way they like to treat prisoners these days.
The proposal still needs congressional approval, meaning for now, Alcatraz remains a tourist destination, not a destination for inmates. And until then, the only thing locked up there is history. For One America News, I'm Angel Russell.
For all our viewers asking where One America
So very
News
fascinating
is
story
future,
there.
we would like to introduce
Alcatraz,
you to
Trump wants to
OAN
reopen
Live.
it. So
OAN Live is the best way to.
we'll see how that goes forward. Moving on here, we're getting near the end of our podcast, but Putin gave a direct address to the citizens of Western countries. He said, "The truth is that the problems you are facing now are the result of years of actions by the ruling elites of your own countries. Remember, we're talking about the cabal. That's the ruling elites are part of the cabal. Listen to what Putin has to say here.
Хочу, чтобы меня услышали и простые граждане западных государств. Вас сейчас настойчиво пытаются убедить в том, что все ваши трудности – это результат каких-то враждебных действий России, что из вашего собственного кошелька надо оплатить борьбу с мифической русской угрозой. Все это ложь. А правда в том, что текущие проблемы, с которыми сталкиваются миллионы людей на Западе, стали результатом многолетних действий правящих элит их государств. Их ошибок, близорукости и амбиций. Эти элиты думают не о том, как улучшить жизнь своих граждан в западных странах. Они одержимы своими корыстными интересами и сверхприбылями.
Very interesting as we're coming to the roundup of the cabal and the elimination of their ability to control the world. What Putin is saying, it's almost as if he is talking like a Trump here. Very fascinating. We'll have to see how this works out. There's still a conflict going on in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. We do expect that to be resolved soon. And there's reasons for that. Modern day Ukraine is the original home of the Khazarian mafia, many who claim they were the start of the cabal, that they were the ones that launched it across the world. NEC director Kevin Hassett talked about things that were being done to curb the high price of oil with many nations, particularly allied nations of the United States. Listen to what he has to say here.
The president made a stunning comment the other night in his address to the nation that the U.S. produces more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. That was pretty incredible. So just to be clear, are you saying that you have received interest from allies across the world to buy oil and gas recently during this Iran conflict?
Right. It's one of the things that people mention in conversation is that if we set up offtake agreements with our allies so that they have a guaranteed supply of U.S. oil, they'd have a much more secure energy supply, and that would be very, very good for reducing the risks that their country faces. And for sure, we've had conversations about that really since the trade negotiations began years ago.
So there's conversations going on between various nations to perhaps get offtake agreements on the oil that they need to run their country. Very fascinating. As we are coming to the close of this podcast, we always have to provide a little bit of humor here because there's so much going on. I know it can feel a little overwhelming for all of you out there. And this time we're going to get the humor directly from President Trump because, he likes to keep things a little on the light side some too. And he's joking here. The press is asking him questions. He's joking here about Venezuela and perhaps becoming the president of Venezuela. Take a listen to what he has to say. It's very fascinating.
The people of Venezuela, they say if I ran for president of Venezuela, I'm polling higher than anybody has ever polled in Venezuela. So after I'm finished with this, I can go to Venezuela. I will quickly learn Spanish. It won't take too long. I'm good at language. And I will go to Venezuela. I'm going to run for president. But we're very happy with the president-elect that we have right now, the people that are running it.
So thank you, President Trump, for that. A little bit of humor, of course. He's joking, but it is interesting that the people of Venezuela, because of the removal of Maduro and the changes that are taking place in that country, are now talking about building a statue to honor Donald Trump. And we featured that in our last update as they're actually discussing this, about building a statue to honor him because he brought reasonable circumstances back to their country. They're now getting money for their oil that they have, and it's actually flowing to the people so that they've got the food and the things that they need. This concludes our update this week. A ceasefire begins, and hope that this has been helpful for many of you just to understand all the things that are going on are not so disconnected as you think that they are. There's actually a plan to all of this, and it's about the reset that we're experiencing, that we're underway with, as we look to conquer these issues that are before us, there's a great opportunity for us to have a wonderful and glorious golden age future. For those that are needing some help with projects and are wanting to kind of get themselves structured or settled, I do have some limited availabilities, you can see here on the chart, for consulting. I do have a calendar that is accessible. If you go to the website, and I think it's towards the bottom of the first page, there is a link there that'll take you to the calendar, and there is some availability. I'll say some because it is quite full. I wish I had more time to get to many of you, but there's just only so many hours in a day, and so I'm doing the best I can. But if you'd like, you can go there and book some time with me, and we can discuss your personal situation, whether it be financial or project related or whatever, to help you prepare and get through the current events that are taking place with this transition. I hope this has been helpful for all of you. From all of us here at Eden Global Services, we love you. We appreciate the work that all of you are doing. We appreciate the support that you give us, the emails, and the messages of encouragement to keep going. We will keep doing these as we are able to bring light and truth and understanding to the challenges going on in our world, and how we all can participate in those as humanitarians to bless the world, to make it better, and to do our part in our own little communities, wherever we are living, that we can make them better, we can help the people around us, and we can build a glorious future, a heaven on earth, if you will. And we hope that you all will join us in this endeavor. We think it's a noble endeavor, and that there is so much good that we can do when we work together. So until next week, you all have a wonderful weekend. May it be joyful and prosperous. We will be back next week with some additional news as things continue to pour out. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.